So, making a path follow the contour of your landscape. Something else we talked about in the possible projects of making a little railroad. And this is just going to be a quickie so you get the idea. So what we're going to do is make a polyplane. And I'm going to scale it up to about there. Let me get rid of the grid. We're going to need more resolution because we simply don't have enough vertices to work with. So I'm going to go into the polyplane setting. And I'll just set this something to really high, like 40 by 40. That's more about the size of the hills you're making and the detail and what you're doing, but this should be fine. If we go into select vertices, by default, or depending on what you have your settings, when you select one, it may just pull one vertex. Or if you grab a couple of vertices here, it may just pull those vertices. Well, that's not very helpful. So what we can do is we can, over here, go into the Tools settings and go down to Soft Select. And this will give us an entirely different sort of feel. What it does is it gives you a fall-off radius, and the different radiuses are here. You can kind of play with this. A much sharper fall-off, a linear fall-off, no fall-off at all, so it just grabs a flat area. The first one's nice and smooth. I think that'll do just fine for ours, and I'm going to up this to about 10. And when I do that, I can pull out a nice hill. And what we'll do is we're not going to get crazy about it, but I'll pull out a hill over here, maybe in the middle. I'll just make this area dip down a little bit. And again, we'll pull up a hill over here. Okay, so if you were doing something of a hilly landscape, this might be perfect, or something more detailed if you had that in mind. All right, next thing you need to do is, with the object selected, we need to go to one of the snapping tools, the one here on the end, just the plain magnet, and this will make the object live. If you watch the color green that the object is, it turns into a slightly different shade of green, and that means that this is now a live surface. The advantage of that, and I'll hit spacebar and go to the top view, is when we create a path for our animation now, and what I'll do is I'll just select a CV curve, and I'll click path, and the real way to do this so that you get a good effect is that you want to have a lot of CVs. You don't want a lot of big stretches without detail in it. Okay, they won't be able to stick to the surface as well, and then you'll have to go in and make some changes by hand, which is not a terrible thing to do. You'll probably end up having to do it to a certain degree anyway, but alright, that's good enough for now. So there's my path. I'm going to switch back to up here, switch back to the perspective view. Alright, so we have the perspective view over here. And what I need to do is turn off that effect on the landscape. So we have the path and we have the landscape. Okay, so if we look at the landscape now, our path follows it pretty good. So you might have a few spots where it's not as clear as you possibly would like it to be. So you might go into the, if I can get to the path alone, let me just select this so I can get into a control vertice, and maybe we'll just grab this, turn off soft select, and just move that up a little bit just so it's over the surface. And again, we have like a vertex over here. It's just a little bit below the surface, and we just want that to kind of go up just a little bit. Sometimes it's up too high if you didn't have enough detail in here, but for now this will do just fine. Alright, so let me turn back on the surface so I can be working with objects. Alright, what I'm going to do just to make life easier is I'm going to take the hills and I'm going to put them on a layer, and I'm going to reference them so that I can't select them anymore. So this way I can work directly with the path. Next thing I want to do is create something to travel along the path. For now, we're just going to create a cube. I'm going to scale that cube down a little bit, and let's just color it so we can see it. So I'll go to assign favorite color, Lambert, and we'll just make this a red so that's easy to see. Okay. All we need to do at this point now is we have an object selected. We can shift select the path. We want to go into the animation menu, and under the animate menu we'll use the simpler of the two solutions for moving things along a path. We'll go to motion path and attach to motion path. All right, so we tip this, and over here we have our train, and if we just watch him for a second, he travels joyfully along the path until he gets to the end, and then he starts again. Okay, so you may be noticing that currently he's traveling kind of through the geometry, and that's because his pivot is at the middle of the geometry. So if I go here, you can just see that if we frame him up, the reason he's traveling through the geometry is the path is actually sitting on the geometry, but his pivot is right in the middle. And it's a really easy fix. All we need to do is select the object, go to move. If we hit D to go into pivot mode, and we just click on the up axis, we can actually pull down and move our guy till he's sitting up on the surface. Alright, and he's going through there, but we have things much like the other one where we can bank him and tilt him from one side to the other with the controller. Alright, but basically now he's sitting up on top of the path. He's pretty happy. And you can still adjust your path. You may want to take the entire path at this point and even just move it up a little bit off the surface. That might even work better for you. So now as he moves along, he's chugging along, and you're back to your normal. If you wanted to stop animation methods, we just go into the track editor. This time the animation is on the object, and this is his animation curve. And if we wanted him to slow out and slow start, we can just set those to flat tangents, and at that point he'll ease out of one space and ease into the other.